And now, a few words from our sponsor, Goldco. If you watch our show, you know how we feel about our government and our financial system. So it's no secret we are believers in diversifying your money with precious metals like gold and silver. But when it comes to buying precious metals, you need the right company in your corner. That's why we've partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco, because reputation matters. Goldco has helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver. For those with retirement accounts, they're offering TruthStream supporters up to $10,000 in free silver when opening a qualified IRA account. This is your opportunity to protect yourself from our out-of-control, corrupt government. Visit truthstreamgold.com today. The link's below.
Welcome to the show. We are here once again with Nada and Lisa, and this is going to be on the Grassroots Warrior Network as well, where also Lisa is one of the what do we call it? Either
Anchor.
Journalist or anchor or reporter, whatever we want to call it. And so are we. And we're very thankful to have them on our show. Scott and I are actually probably going to be doing a lot more listening than talking on this one. Anything you want to lead into other than that, Mr. Stone?
No, I'm just thrilled to have you both back. And I think you're going to have some wonderful insights for the audience. And, we're discussing some pretty heavy subject matter. But as we kind of talked about in the pre-interview, a lot of this is designed to put people in fear. And fear arrests, the spiritual process, the awakening of what's going on, which is kind of a big motivation, at least our best estimation. So we kind of like to counter that as best we could and deliver a message of unity.
Yes.
We're listening to actors, bad actors, corporate actors. This isn't trusted governments, and there's a big facade here that we kind of hope to see through. So with that, I don't know, Lisa, do you want to share your perspective to start with, and we'll kick it off?
Yeah, I have a couple of different things to say, but where I want to start with is what I've been witnessing is breaking my heart. I spent all yesterday morning crying, and I'm going to start to cry again because what I witnessed was an hour and a half of a 2-hour video of what's going on in the West Bank. And I will tell you from a humanity standpoint, no one should endure what's going on here. And what horrifies me more is the lack of information that's going back and forth. And they were talking about how the Palestinians were clueless as to why the rockets were even coming over, that Hamas had come over. And here's the other thing. And I keep hearing this term, but I've been to Israel, I've seen it. A grain of rice cannot pass through Israel's airspace or their borders without them knowing. And the amount of delay that happened and allowing what's going on. Now, I can't speak for the military. I'm not part of the military. I don't know what's happened, but my understanding is Egypt had warned them that something big was coming. It's also an anniversary of another event that had happened many years ago. I think it was at the 6-Day War that happened, not the 6-Day War, the Yom Kippur War. There's a lot of things that don't make sense to me as to what's happened. And for people who are talking about, oh, this is all staged, let me tell you, it is not. There are real people dying. I know people in Israel. I know someone, her best friend's daughter was at the rave and she's missing. They can't find her. A friend of mine grew up in the kibbutz next to the one in southern Israel that was attacked. And he's been going down there trying to help. The reason why I wanted to have the show was really to talk about the humanity in all this and stop the hatred of hating Jews and hating Palestinians and death to this and death to that, because that's how World War II started. That's how this started, in Yugoslavia and all the war, is that we all bleed the same blood. We're all still humans. We still have families. We still have loved ones. And what I'm witnessing, I believe, is a way to try and create World War III. And getting us to hate each other and create this And Neda, I don't know if you want to talk more about what you see that's going on in Palestine, because this video just, I literally couldn't function most of yesterday after I watched it.
Yeah. I mean, same as you, Lisa. Everything that I've been seeing over the last week or so has just been horrific. And I think it's really twofold for me. One, I'm seeing the footage of the dead people in Israel, the dead people in Palestine. We're talking not only in Gaza. So Gaza, everyone is seeing all the rockets that are being launched into Gaza. So inherently there's going to be dead people there. I think the other side of that is you have the illegal settlers have now started to attack the Palestinians in the West Bank. So that now it's kind of like on the two front thing where there shouldn't be fighting now there is fighting. And so the dead bodies there. So that's really disheartening. And then the other side of it is for everyone else that's outside of this, whether you're a Palestinian or a Jewish person that does not live in the Middle East, or if you are not on either side, just the horrific way people are talking to each other online. I've seen so many crazy posts on Twitter, on TikTok, just the hate. I don't understand. When did we become these beings? And a lot of people that say, well, I have no, horse in this race. I have no stake in this. I don't care. I don't understand where this indifference comes from. We are part of the world together. And it's just, I don't get the hate and all of the disdain that's coming on the internet and what we see in the news and the rampant misinformation that's being just shoved down people's throats. And it causes people to formulate these opinions and pick a side and be so hateful. And I have received multiple death threats, by the way. So just to let you guys know, even my mom was like, I need you to stop posting on TikTok. And I was like, that's what they want. Absolutely not. I would never do that, because I am not going to fold because I'm getting threats. At this point, I'm just like, if you're going to be about it, be about it. Like, I'm at that point right now. And I'm sure my parents are not happy about that. But at this point, it's just like, we have to do the right thing. We have to speak up for humanity, against oppression, even if it's against your own. Even if it's against your own. That's the thing. It's like, no one wants to go against the grain because they don't want to be, called out as a traitor or whatever. But we have to do the right thing, period. There's right and there's wrong. And it's just that, to me, there's no opinionated there. It's like, you're either doing the right thing or you're the wrong thing for humanity. And I am seeing all sorts of crap everywhere that really is just, it really breaks my heart. So like you, Lisa, I'm so distraught. And yesterday I was looking at footage, the day before I was watching video, and I was just blown away by just the craziness that's out there.
Well, and I just wanted to say, some of what's challenging is to look at certain posts on Twitter or whatever, and differentiate between, what's going on, what we're being fed. Some people know what a false flag is. That doesn't mean that real events aren't happening, but it just means that something is, done intentionally for an outcome, for this division, etc. Can you give clarity on what some of the BS might be, and then what some of the real stuff that's going on? I think that might help.
Yeah, and to add to that, the warning that came out from Egypt, from what I've heard, was 10 days prior, which is a big red flag. That seems that there's a much larger effort behind this. It's not just people paragliding in and whatnot. Does that make sense? I mean, there's a lot of questions here. Yeah, there's this conditioning that we have, whether it's football teams and all this other stuff, to pick a side, to root for someone, and it just takes the humanity right out of it. And to echo the point that you were making, this is not a time to pick sides. It's a time to recognize your humanity. And
what they're doing is creating so much fear and so much anger, and the repetition of these visuals puts people into a trance and puts people into fight or flight. And then with the media blasting, about Hamas and going after Hamas, and then people associating Hamas with the Palestinians, it's not the same. Just like the Israeli government is not the same as the people who live in Israel. And people need to make that distinction. It's just like, if I want to talk about Joe Biden doesn't represent me. Right. He may be I don't even want to go into that because that's a whole nother topic, but
Yeah.
people need to distinguish the governments versus the humanity of the people. And I'm sorry, these children that are dealing with what they're dealing is just unconscionable. You know, are forever damaged. People are forever damaged, losing everything. And then, you know, for the Israeli government to send those flyers and say, you have, you know, get all your belongings and go, and then bomb their exit, leaving them trapped. And I saw a video of whenever the Palestinians find their own water, because Israel controls their water, but if they dig a well, there was a video of the Israeli army coming in and cementing up their water. And I literally, so as a Jew, the painful thing is for me is that I've had a lifetime of having it drummed into me that you know, the Jews are always persecuted. We need this homeland. You know, we had the Holocaust. They're always the Bolshevik Revolution. It goes back, you know, millennia back to the Spanish Inquisition, all of those things of constant persecution. That is drummed into all of our heads. As a matter of fact, it was interesting because my daughter and my son, their father's not Jewish. And since he didn't want to raise them anything, I said, well, I want to give you some kind of background. So I raised them in the Jewish faith. My daughter fought me tooth and nail on it. And she texted me and said, I'm so sorry that I have fought you and not quite understood what you have always talked to me about all these years. I, you know, always thought of the Holocaust. She didn't say that, but she didn't really understand, you know, why I was so passionate about it since birth. And so that is so ingrained in the Jewish people of having to protect, that is the mindset. And they don't really distinguish. They don't, although I'm seeing more and more because there's a big uprising within Israel to fight Netanyahu and the government. They don't like him, and they really don't want him there. But when you have people who have these fake elections and putting people into power who don't belong there, you want to talk about, you know, the deep state. This is the deep state on both sides. They're trying to create a war because they get both sides. So I don't know if you want to add any more to this, Nada, but it's just, we need to come together and create, if we reach across to each other and create compassion and help each other instead of pointing fingers and then realizing where the evil is really coming from, we can join together and this could be over quickly.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns for me. I have a lot of questions, and some of it has been answered as, you know, events are unfolding. I think one of the biggest things for me is the 10-day. So the warning from Egypt, I believe it was about a week, 7 to 10 days prior to the attack. I also heard that the festival that was attacked, I heard that the location changed 48 hours before with very little notice.
Right.
And I'm like, why would they do that? Like, if I were going to a big festival, or if I'm doing Burning Man, you know, like I need to, as an attendee, I would need to know way in advance, especially if I have arrangements made. So why would they change the location?
Right.
And why was there a 6-hour delay in response? And why? That's like, to me, I feel like there's involvement from both sides. I don't know what, I mean, maybe that's crazy to believe, but like you said, Lisa, nothing gets past Israel, nothing. And it's just, I mean, just to go visit, I'm an American with an American passport with an Arabic name. Just to go visit Israel, I am in the airport for 5-6 hours and being interrogated. Like, why are you here? Where's your family? Where do they live? Where did you come from? How, like, I mean, they know everything about each individual. So for them not to know this is either Hamas is really good, which how, you know, like they live in freaking tunnels, or something allowed it to happen because there's a bigger agenda, because they wanted World War III. And the US's response was so fast with no thinking. There's no level-headedness. And the condemnation towards Palestinian was so fast and bundling us up with Hamas is even faster. You know what I mean? And it's collective punishment at this point. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about this. This happened, I believe it was yesterday morning or maybe the day before yesterday. The boy in Chicago, the 6-year-old boy that was stabbed by his landlord. I mean, it's insane. So his landlord is 71 years old. He lives at home with his mother. They rent a flat from this gentleman. He knocked on the door, and it's not unusual for him to do that because he's the landlord. The little boy, or I'm sorry, the mother opened the door. He choked the mother. He tried to stab her. She ran into the bathroom with her phone, and she's on the phone with 911. But in that moment, he found her 6-year-old son, and he stabbed him, I think, like 28 times, killing him. And then he stabbed her. And now she's in critical condition. So now I'm going to cry, Lisa. So this boy was supposed to be going to school today, and he didn't go to school because he's in the ground, because he's a Palestinian Muslim. And it's really disheartening. Like, the events that have unfolded now, it's like reaching across the world because people don't know how to manage their emotions. Because they don't know what's right and what's wrong. And it's just, I am at a loss for words because I don't know how do I tell my nieces and nephews who are Palestinian. Half of them my oldest sister, her ex-husband who passed during COVID, but he was from Gaza. So half of my nieces and nephews are from Gaza. How do I explain to them, hey, when you go outside, make sure you don't wear any t-shirts that have Palestine on it, because some crazy person might attack you because of their beliefs. Or make sure you don't say that you're from Gaza, even though they were born and raised here. I know it's a little bit of a rant, but I'm a human being and I am at my wit's end. I feel like I am exhausted emotionally, and that is nothing compared to what the people in Gaza are going through every day. They're living it. We're just seeing it and hearing the news, and it's exhausting. So I can't even imagine living it, going hungry, no water, being attacked, and it's just living in fear constantly. And then on the other side, you have the Israelis that are against Netanyahu, against the evil Zionist regime, and they just want to live and thrive, that are constantly afraid because they think Palestinians hate them, because they have been conditioned to believe that this is something against the Jews, and it's absolutely not. And it's just, how do we reverse that thinking? I don't know. I mean, I have been trying, and I've been talking it feels like I've been talking nonstop for the past, I don't know, 48 hours. And it's just, I cannot figure out what to say to comfort someone, or what to say to comfort myself. Honestly, I mean, I am pretty distraught. That's the honest truth. It's horrible.
I'm reminded, and I'm sure we all are, what happened after 9/11, where whether it was ISIS or whatever terrorist cell was just synonymous with all of Islam.
Yes.
And any attempt to differentiate or to educate, about Islam or something was promptly squashed as not patriotic or whatnot. And it was very much, there was such an effort to divide. And
yes.
That seems to be the case here. Hamas, Palestine.
It's the intention. It's been going on for millennia. World War II, blaming the Jews for everything. It's like, or blaming Hamas and the Palestinians, and now they're trying to bring Iran in. Part of me is wondering, if you go back, if you believe in Q and the Q post, they said saving, Israel for last. I have no idea what that means, other than maybe part of this is also a giant sting operation to get, it's a horrific way, because there's true death that's involved in all of this. But maybe there's some solace in this, knowing that maybe this is a sting operation to cut off what's left and go in. And my understanding is there's biolabs in Israel, and a lot of other things. I don't have a way of proving any of this, so I have to be careful what I say, but just what I've heard. I don't know what the truth is, but I'm hoping that the truth will come out, and that people will see that that we need to come together. We are not going to ascend. And what is this about this area in the Middle East that's so important that wars are fought over it? What is it about this area? And we talked about this in the pre-interview of possible,
Stargate.
sorry, the stargates and portals. And my understanding is there's portals and underground tunnels under the Dome of the Mount and the Wailing Wall. When I was at the Wailing Wall, I remember I was there. It was my nephew's bar mitzvah, and I felt an incredible energy there. And I had a cousin of mine there who was in a great deal of pain. He has spine issues, and he walks with a cane, and he's about my age. And we went to the luncheon, and it was right nearby. And he said, "I have to go back. I'm being called back." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "There's something about the Western Wall that I need to go back to." So he left the luncheon, went back and said a prayer. And this is a very intellectual person. He's always in his head. And he said, something happened to me when he came back. He turned around and walked away and didn't need his cane.
Wow.
Yeah. Now he's since called it back, but he had a brief period where he had no pain and was walking without his cane, which tells me there's something pretty miraculous that's there, that's being harnessed, that we don't know a lot about.
I mean, if you think about it, it is the epicenter for 3 holy religions. I mean, can you imagine the energy there? I mean, you're talking within maybe a 5 square mile area, we have synagogues, mosques, and churches. And I think the vibration is really strong there. I mean, if that's something that people believe in, I believe in vibration. I believe in, if you get a group of people together and then they're basically making the same sound over and over again, that raises vibrations. It could be that. I mean, that's why in some religion, I mean, and I hope I'm not mistaken, but like sometimes in the Shia in Islam, like as they're praying, like they repeat the same thing like over and over, and it's the same tone. And I feel like it kind of just makes things, not only raising the vibration, but it just really just makes people in this kind of like, the tone is the same, and it just makes people feel better. Maybe, I'm not sure. So it could be that.
Well, sound, whatever comes out of your mouth is a prayer, right? Mm-hmm. So any kind of vibration that comes out of your mouth. And what's interesting is, because I had to learn Hebrew when I was younger, growing up, when you say your prayers while you're reading the actual Hebrew, it's a very different feeling than, they call it transliteration. So they take the English language and they make it sound like the Hebrew letters. And I always noticed when I was younger trying to learn Hebrew that it's a very different feeling and a very different emotion when it's coming from, when you're reading. And I don't know if you have it from the ancient languages. There's a visual, there's a sound. They also say that our DNA is encoded with the ancient language. The word God is actually encrypted. What is his name? I'll think of it. Wrote a book about it.
Yahweh or Elohim or
Yahweh. But there's this escapes me. It'll come back. But he wrote a book all about the fact that the word is actually encoded in our DNA of God.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
We are connected to the source, and what they are trying to do is disconnect us and bring in hatred and fear, which is the opposite of love. So one of the things that I have done in my life, and I've studied, there's actually an ancient Hawaiian prayer called the Ho'oponopono, which is a forgiveness prayer. And I've used that in my life, and it creates miracles. I had 2 people, one I hadn't spoken to in 14 years, another one in 7. And the only thing that was different was this prayer. And both of them, one contacted me out of the blue and said, I noticed things have changed between us. How can we, get back in? How can we get back into each other's lives? And I had the same thing happen with the other person. And these were people I didn't think I'd ever really speak to again. So forgiveness, which is the message of Christ, right? He was brought in, whether or not you believe that he was the Messiah or prophet or whatever you believe about him, the message of forgiveness is very, very powerful. And if we can forgive one another, and if we can forgive, maybe in some way individually, if we do this Ho'oponopono prayer, which is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Now, you want to repeat it over and over again until there's no charge left. Now, people will say, why am I saying forgive me when I didn't do it and they did it to me? And I'm like, you have to look at it from the overarching meaning, is that you're saying it from the perspective of spirit and God, because we are all connected. Whether, forget about your religion, forget about your ethnicity, your culture, whatever it is, we are all a part of God. We are all connected. And the interesting thing is, they say that through DNA that the Palestinians and the Jews are actually related.
Yes.
And DNA wise. And the other thing is, if you look at the Muslim culture and the religious Jews, a lot of their customs are so similar. I want to shake people up. And it's about covering the hair. Orthodox Jews either have a yarmulke on, or the women wear wigs.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't eat pork. They observe a form of Sabbath. I think the Muslim starts is Friday. And then Jews are Saturday. But many of our customs are so similar. We are so much more alike. We all are Abrahamic religions. We come from the same source.
Yeah, but you know, I think the issue here, I mean, I don't agree that I don't think that the issue is about religion. I don't think so. I think that the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims are being pit against each other. I think there's something else. And I see the comments, the videos on TikTok and all of the social media. And a lot of it to me is very political, non-theological, because I think they literally just dangle something in front of us, and then we go at it, and then they're doing something else in the background while we're going at it. And I saw a video today. Someone was basically saying that this kind of reminds them of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire, the emperor was doing whatever the hell he wants. So what they did do is bring in all these fighters into the fighting pits. And that was kind of like the distraction for the average person. So they come in, they're fighting, they're going at it, and you're taking sides. People are dying, people are rooting, and it's just mayhem. While the emperor is stealing and doing everything that he needs to do to make sure that he's set up and he's protected and he's good. So it's kind of the same here. Like, we're fighting over whatever it is. And it's the collective we, obviously. I don't think, the four of us, I feel like, will be, we can go to the bar and just chill out and hang out, even though we have different backgrounds. But I think it's just that we, as a whole, we're fighting over something while there is a new world order that's being created. And the unknown is, and there's very, very little people that agree with that. A lot of people will be like, that's just conspiracy theory. But then I'm like, then what's the why? What is the why for all of this? It doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like I'm a pretty reasonable person. I'm not the most intelligent person in the world, but I have common sense. And the common sense is the math is not mathing for me. There's something off.
I think you've nailed it completely. And, I think what's at play here is much older than any of these religions.
Yeah.
And if we look at artifacts, like look what happened in the Iraq War, the raiding of the museums, there's a whole storyline around that. It's not widely publicized, but it's there for you to dig. And then you look at Syria and the constant harassment of Syria, and the provocation has been exposed, like the gassing of Assad's own people and whatnot. That was all exposed. Of course, that wasn't talked about very much either. And then we go back to Hitler and his pursuit of the Spear of Destiny and the Ark of the Covenant and all these different artifacts. These artifacts are technology. They have great power. And that's something that we don't get to have a conversation about, but I think it's very much at the heart of these conflicts.
Yes. And my understanding is, I think that there's 7 really important portals that are over there. And what was interesting, I remember when I sat at the Truth Tour, I had the opportunity to sit with 107 for an hour, and he talked about the story about Mount Hermon, and how there was a giant portal there, and that's where the original Baal came through, and all of his demons. And they were all male, and they couldn't reproduce, so they started breeding with local women there. And that's how they were spreading their seed, because they can't reproduce themselves. And what he told me was, when Hillary Clinton was supposed to become president, what ISIS did was they destroyed that portal. It was, but what they did was they replicated it before it was destroyed there, and they were planning on moving it to Washington, D.C., and Hillary was supposed to unleash a bunch of demons on Washington, D.C. when she supposedly became president. My understanding is, according to him, that was thwarted. But there's so much metaphysical stuff that's behind the scenes, and some of your viewers may go, that's really cool, and other people think, okay, I'm going to shut this off now because it's way beyond what I can understand. And you know, it gets into all the reasons. There's a root cause here. There's something much deeper that's going on. Why was, you know, the British were holding on to this land, and then why was it suddenly given over to, you know, the Jewish people? This war was created so that they could, everyone would say, okay, we don't want the Jews here, they don't belong anywhere, we're just going to put them someplace because we don't want them. And so they displaced, and there's so much misinformation about how it happened, why it happened, whether or not Palestine existed, Israel existed, how far back it all is. Depending upon your background, you're told completely different stories. And Nada, you know, it was really wonderful the last time we were on, where you really talked about the perspective of what you were taught, and it so totally made sense of how what a thriving place it was. You know, we were always told it was the desert, there was nothing there, there was no one there. And so, you know, and it's just so interesting that you have some of the top technology in the world is being produced out of Israel. Where is that technology coming from? Why is Israel, of all places, in that location? And with all that technology and everything they had, they couldn't see people parachuting in? Oh, because it goes below the radar? I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a single second. There was too much of a delay. And then they were talking about that kibbutz. There was a husband and wife who had twin baby girls, and all the houses have to have these like shelters, these bomb shelters. So they put their twin babies in the shelter, and then these two, husband and wife, were out there shooting, and they shot, I guess, 7 soldiers, and then they were killed. And then it took 18 hours for them to get to the kibbutz to rescue these children. That doesn't make sense. Israel's the size of New Jersey. The military is all over the place. 18 hours to get to these children. Whether or not that's a true story or if it was staged, I don't even begin to know what is real anymore, what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, I think
on something with that. Sorry, I just wanted to interject. The Arch of Baal was destroyed in near Iraq and Kuwait. We're talking about the Tigris and Euphrates River valleys. This is the cradle of civilization. All the biblical history, you know, this is the origin story. But the Arch of Baal, which is, if they were you know, back in the days, this was Babylonian, this was pre-Abrahamic traditions like what we're talking about. They'd enter through the Arch of Baal to sacrifice children on the altar. Well, they recreated the Arch of Baal, and then it toured all these cities in London, the city of London, Washington, D.C., the Vatican, all of these cities. It would appear, and there was a photo opportunity. And if you go back and you look at the photographs, these were all largely financial heads and you know, people of some political celebrity, but most of these folks weren't easily recognizable by most people. But it really makes a powerful statement and backs up what you were saying about Baal and these portals. So I just wanted to bring that in. I think that was key.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, Netta, I know you're now, just for the viewers.
Yeah.
I know some of this stuff is stuff you may not hear on mainstream news. There's probably a reason they don't talk about portals. But if any of you, like Netta, that have TikTok or Twitter or Instagram, and you want to take some of these clips and put it out there to help people understand, if you resonate with this material, we do welcome that, as long as it's used in a positive way.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
we
Right.
tried to get to some of it, but Netta, I knew you were going to say something, and thank you for sharing that. I just we didn't want to interrupt what you might have been
Exactly,
about to say
yeah.
either. So please.
No, no, it's perfectly okay. I mean, so I don't have a lot of knowledge about portals except for what we discuss together. So, and sometimes it makes me go, that makes sense. Sometimes there's just, to me, it's just the lack of knowledge that I just don't understand it or don't know it, but I don't disagree with it. Sometimes it makes sense. And my beliefs are, there isn't anything that's impossible. I feel like anything is possible.
Right, especially
And
now.
especially now. So it's just like, whatever you guys tell me, and whenever I hear about portals and stuff like this, I'm really just taking it all in, and I'm absorbing it. But it makes sense. Some of it really makes sense, because I believe in energy, and I feel like those two are connected. But I want to learn more about it. At least maybe you and I can have a separate, conversation about this, so I can learn more. But I'm definitely willing to learn. And if there's something that resonates, I'm absolutely willing to talk about it on my TikTok and share. For sure.
Well, we are interdimensional beings, right? But we have been cut off from our wisdom of knowing that we travel. And Scott, you and Joe know this well, that when you go to sleep, you're not sleeping. Your soul is out there doing all kinds of stuff that you don't have awareness of or don't remember. And so you can set an intention to ask to remember and keep a diary next to you. And even if it's something that doesn't make sense, just write it down, because you will get more information about who you are as a being and what your soul does and what it's doing by keeping track of that. But if you look at CERN, the purpose of CERN, is, I don't even remember. I remember seeing it on 60 Minutes. I forget what the mainstream was saying the purpose of it was, but it was all about attaining the God particle. But what they're doing is opening portals, demonic portals, to bring in, unleashing hell on Earth.
Huh.
And Scott, I don't know if you want to talk more about that, if that's something you know more about.
Well, I'm by no
Yeah.
means an expert, but I know it has a
come on,
great deal to
he
do
knows
with
some
the
stuff.
Higgs boson and whatnot. But I think what's important is when we collide these particles in such a way, it's interesting how CERN operates with impunity. It's a scientific bit of technology that's well over the heads of most of us. So we just, well, they're doing important work. But there's a giant statue of Shiva out in front, the god of destruction. And they have these ceremonies that are very occultic or esoteric and appear to be rather satanic, for maybe lack of a better word. So there is this whole occult culture, within the structure itself. This hadron collider is, I think, is 18 miles or something like that, and it crosses borders. So if you're going to build up a scientific facility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's a picture of Obama on Time Magazine or something, like in that same pose. Just so people. Yeah.
And it's
so
no accident. They communicate this way.
Right.
But
that's my 2 cents. Go ahead.
But why would you involve two countries and all the different regulatory bodies that would have to weigh in on the activities at a facility? There has to be something really specific about that facility. And from what I understand, that is the historical point of Apollo's pit. Apollo's pit is the entrance to hell, to back up what Lisa was saying. So it's not just science. And when they do collide these particles, they create new materials. I forgot the name of the material, drawn a blank, but it's the most dense substance on the planet. And of course, this thing is, these are, they're so tiny that they just go straight to the center of the earth.
Wow.
Right. And if you're changing the mass of the planet, you're going to change a lot of things about the rotation of the planet and how time works and whatnot. If you build enough mass over time, you're going to alter a lot of things that we're going to eventually experience here on the planet. So there's a lot of heavy duty stuff happening at CERN and very little accountability. And I think it's really important that you brought that up, because I think it definitely ties into a lot of the events. If you look at the timeline on what's taken place at CERN, when it was shut down, when it was brought back, how they shifted from the collider to their other experiments, which were projected more into the heavens and less about Earth. But they're said to be it's an effort to open a portal.
And we do know the Earth might not be quote unquote rotating like the way that we're sold.
Is CERN an acronym?
Yes. Yeah, maybe you can look that up.
I can look it up. I just
Yeah.
So is it with an S or a C?
CERN. Yeah.
CERN.
And
So
it's
do you think that whatever it is that they're doing there not only impact just only events, so like the war or whatever, but do you think that it also has an impact on climate or just, I mean, just the weather that we experienced in Texas in 2021. I mean, it shut down Dallas for a week because we've never experienced snow and ice like this ever. And
they can bounce time at CERN.
Yeah, many theorize that it adjusts the very fabric of space and time. And there's a phenomenon that's commonly referred to as the Mandela effect.
Oh yeah.
But it was just that people had certain memories of a thing, and other people don't. And it lines in the movies like Star Wars. Star Wars kind of is featured. C-3PO, the droid in the movie, had a silver leg. It was a gold robot. Nobody that I talked to remembers a silver leg, but apparently that's the actual history. And there's 1,000,001 examples, but they all sort of popped up around the same time. And Mandela was a lot of people remember him dying in prison. Others remember him going on to become president again, I believe, or prime minister, whatever the role was.
Oh, South Africa.
Yeah, a couple of
because there were those who said he died.
Right.
And even that gets into Richard Simmons, whether or not he had a headband or not. I mean, there's silly little things like I remember him wearing a headband, and they show videos now with him without a headband, and I was like, what?
There's no way.
And there's timelines. Those are different timelines that are converging in one reality that we're all living in. And that may or may not have occurred in the past. If we were to have, you can read that in just a second.
Well, I'm trying to figure out exactly, because go ahead. It's not like CERN means this. It's in your Council European for Nuclear Research, but it doesn't come across that exact.
Oh,
it
okay.
may be a European, maybe an acronym for the way, because it's Swiss and maybe French.
Thank you.
If you watch the movie Angels and Demons, the Dan Brown movie, it's really about CERN and the God particle. So it might be a good, to get people an interest. So how interesting that we went from Palestine and Israel to portals, but I think it's important for people to raise above and see things from a universal perspective. We're in this microcosm of seeing everyone, go at each other and fight and hate. But I think it's important for people to look at the big picture as to why. And they also feed off the loosh of hate. They need that energy for them to fire off those portals and for them to travel, because they can't create themselves. So they need us to create for them, because we are manifestors. So if we visualize a war, guess what happens? We manifest it. So here's the power that we all have. If we visualize peace as a collective, if we can, this is how powerful we switch timelines. We change up the timelines if you just visualize peace. Wow. And stop going into fear and anger and war. And I got caught up in it yesterday. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and people say you shouldn't watch that, and I'm like, I need to be educated. I'm going to do a show tomorrow.
Well, Colosseum in Rome.
Yeah.
This is not a new thing. The bread and circuses, that was an extreme violence as entertainment for the people. Yeah. And a lot of people talk about the political advantages of the distraction of it all, but I think it was much more than that. I think it really was seeding the consciousness to bring about more of this violence and division. This isn't anything new. It's kind of like we had the Carrington event with the 1800s. It was an EMP. If we had that today, it would have been crushing. But we weren't reliant on electricity and electronics and whatnot. It wasn't interwoven like it is today. And then we didn't have the spread of information as well. So a lot of these phenomena that we're observing now, and we've observed in the last decade or two, may have been going on, way, way back in time. We talk about Tartaria and some of these other unexplained things. We just didn't. The narrative was much easier to control before than it is now,
Right.
in many ways. So.
Nada, please, you're about to interject.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, as Lisa was explaining it, I got chills because it makes sense now. I think it's just it's going to be really hard to explain this to someone that is so rooted in their beliefs. How do I explain this to someone that is uber religious and their only guide is the holy book that they read, whether it's the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or whatever it is, right? Like,
So
yeah, go ahead.
So here's my question for you, and this is an actual story of what happened with a client of mine, and
Okay.
this was a huge lesson for me. So one of the things that I do is I do hypnosis, and I ask people who have inherited ancestral trauma. We go through the DNA, and I ask their higher self to go to the ancestor who is the root cause of the mayhem that's happening in a family. So if you see all these patterns that are going on in someone's pattern, alcoholism, addiction, depression, suicide, whatever, bipolar, whatever that is, if you see a large pattern in a family, I will generally tell you that it's a family. It's something from your family lineage. So I was working with a woman who her family was a mess. I mean, cousins, everyone. And I was like, wow, there's something dark here. And we went back, I think about 5 or 6 generations with her. And we found this particularly evil, and I want to say the word demonic ancestor. And we were talking to this ancestor, and the ancestor, we said, we want you to know what havoc your actions have wreaked and the karma of what's happened to your descendants. And would you be willing to heal this? And he was like, absolutely not. He became more and more emboldened and happy with the idea that he had created this pain.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, how about if you were to feel this particular pain, what would that feel like? And he became even more emboldened and smiled in this, really demonic way. And then out of nowhere, Jesus appeared in her vision. And he went over to this demonic being and held him. And he literally disappeared. He melted.
Wow.
And it taught me the power of love. Now, wherever it is in the Quran, wherever it is in the Torah, wherever it is, the message is love wins. Love is above all. And when we come from the place of love, it's the greatest healer, because you can't hook me. If I love you unconditionally, you can say whatever you want to me. And I just say, oh, there they go again. It's not about me, it's about them. When you start throwing rocks at each other, and if I don't throw rocks back at you, they can't get me. If I just stand and send love to you. Now, if you're in a situation where someone's got a knife to you, saying I love you is not going to, I'm not saying not to protect yourself, but I'm saying from a global purpose. And even in relationships from afar, when you talk about the Ho'oponopono, and that global forgiveness, and wherever that comes from, you could say, oh, that's not part of my belief system. I ask you to try it. I made a list of on index cards. On each individual index card, I put different people's names on each one. And I said the prayer for each person. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I started out with this big I'm being honest. And You know, I was in the middle of a grueling divorce. I had all kinds of stuff going on in my life, and I included myself in there because I had to forgive myself for all the things that I beat myself up about. So on each card, I would go through and say this prayer until I didn't have a charge. And I continued with this for months and months and months. And one by one, each of the cards fell away because I'd look at the name and I was neutral. That's how you know is when you're neutral about something.
Wow.
And the more neutral I became, the more miracles started happening in my life, because when you have hate in your thoughts, you think about hate and vengeance, that takes up about 80 to 90% of your thoughts, which leaves you with 10 to 20% to manifest. If you go into a state of love and forgiveness and you're fully present, then you can manifest the heck out of your life. Excuse me.
You know, if I could respond, Nada, to the question you had about the holy books, I just wanted to bring up an example, and I'll use the Bible. You know, it's a pretty important Abrahamic volume, and this was a book written over a great span of time by a multitude of different authors, and yet, you know, that information coalesces quite nicely and historically. But there's so much missing information. We know that these volumes have been edited. At least the Bible we know has been edited with what we found from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you know, there's 11 different references to the Book of Enoch, but there's no Book of Enoch. You know, for political purposes, these volumes have been edited. So I think we have to consider that when we consider what this information means, what's missing. Because when you read the Bible, honestly, especially from the Hebrew translation, this isn't a call to worship. This isn't a call, you know, the fear of God doesn't really, that's not what it really means. It's not about fear. You know, the 40 days, 40 nights, different numbers, different things, they're not literal. You know, but you have to understand the culture in which this stuff was written in order to understand the meaning.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of room for error. And, you know, I don't want to assail anybody's conviction. I'm just saying it may be somewhat incomplete. And there's a lot of division, I think, that has been the result, and I think the intended result of those editing efforts.
Yeah. No, I can see that. So in like the Quran, there's 114 chapters, surahs, and all but one start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which is, you know, in the name of, you know, Allah, the most merciful, the most merciful, I'm trying to translate, the most forgiving. And that means before I read the surah, I am reminded that I need to be merciful and I need to be forgiving. So that goes back to what Lisa was saying earlier about the message of love. And then also 75% of the Quran, 75% is about relationship with man and either their spouse or their child, or with themselves or with others, how to treat someone, how to treat yourself, be kind to yourself. Like, it is okay if you make a mistake, you ask for forgiveness and you move on, right? Like you don't harp on the issue. And it's not just laws about, like you said, which is Scott, which is, you know, it's not about worshiping God and it's not really about that. It's about making sure that you're a decent human being, be a good person, you know, don't treat orphans badly, don't treat your children badly, don't mistreat your neighbors, it's all about that. And I think for me, I'm putting it all together, and I still have a lot of missing pieces, but I feel like there's an alignment, and I feel like overall they're feeding all this negativity to all of us from different backgrounds, and the vibration is kind of, it's so negative that I feel like it's making things worse. That's what it feels like over the last, 20 years. It's just the slow shift of everything getting worse. Yes, the economy goes up and down, but we're talking overall quality of life for everyone around, except for the small minority, I feel like has just shifted for the worse. And I think it all has to do with, everything is connected. And right. Whether if you follow an Abrahamic faith or not, there's something there. The energy is just off for sure.
And when I was in Egypt about 4 or 5 years ago, our tour guide who grew up in Cairo talked about his neighborhood that had a synagogue in it. And he talked about how everyone got along. People intermarried. There were Christians, Muslims, and Jews all living together. My cousin married a woman whose mother is Iraqi and father is Iranian. They had to escape during the Shah of Iran, and they escaped to Israel. But before that, there's a huge Jewish population in Iran and Iraq and all over in the Arab countries. And so, we shared, this was a brainwashing that happened that caused us all to hate each other, because deep down, we all honor and respect each other's differences and wanted to get along. No one wants to hate. No one wants to live in that. And it's the brainwashing, it's the signals, and it's the information. If you're watching these horrific, pictures, and pictures speak 1,000 words, because you're like, you can't say they're making that up, because it's real. I see it. And so when you see these deaths and you see the missiles coming over and these entire neighborhoods are going, or you hear these stories, it's devastating and puts you in fight or flight. And I was in fight or flight yesterday. I mean, it was hard. And so I've had to walk away from it. But I'd have to say, my hope, I can't say that this is true, that this is part of a sting operation, that they are getting the cabal, that they are getting the heads of all these people, and they're finding these people and getting them out. Because if we can get them out, we can start to find peace and find a way that we can all come together and live together without all of this brainwashing, MK Ultra. I think that there is potential for some massive healing once the truth comes out for everyone. And me knowing what's going on with the Khazarian mafia and all that, my family is completely clueless. Most Jews are. I will tell you, most Jews just rely on the fact that their Israeli government is protecting them. That's all they know. They're scared and they want to be protected. And all they know is they don't want a repeat of what's happened before. They have no idea about any of this. And so I ask people to just stop condemning each other. The Palestinian people don't have any idea either. They're not in control of what Hamas does. They just want to have their lives. They want to have their families. They want to be able to come together with their families and have a decent life. And that's what we all deserve.
Yeah, we absolutely, the Palestinians, especially the folks that are living in Gaza. I mean, you have the big thing that a lot of people say is, well, they elected Hamas. And I'm just like, what are the other choices that they have? We don't have political leaders. We don't have people that have the luxury of going to Europe and studying political science or whatever, or come to America and have the wealth of knowledge. They don't have that luxury. They're living in an open, basically it's a concentration camp. It's an open air prison. They can't leave. So they elect the best people that they think can represent them. Sadly, it's not always the best decision for them, but what are other options that they have at this point? It's just like, it's kind of like when we had the election a few years ago, we had Trump and Biden. Really? I mean, these are our options. It's horrible. So it's just like, I mean, and we call ourselves democratic, and we call ourselves we're a democracy and we have all these rights, but do we really? It makes me wonder. I mean, I'm looking at our political candidates for this go around, and I'm like, shit, we are fucked. Like, that's how I feel. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. And it's terrifying. So for us to judge the people that are living in these types of conditions and say, well, look at who you elected. I'm like, do you want to talk about that? And let's broaden that spectrum a little bit and talk about how we elect here. And it's and I don't want to be that negative person and be like, you, or me, but it's really difficult not to. It's difficult to blame Hamas when ultimately there's the United Nations, Amnesty International, countless, Israeli historians that say that Israel is an apartheid country and Israel is oppressing the Palestinian people. So there is oppression. So we have to acknowledge that. I feel a lot of it is self-inflicted, and some people just refuse to acknowledge that. And I feel bad for not only the Palestinians, obviously, that are it's predominantly Muslim. We have a huge Christian community and a handful, I would say a handful of Palestinian Jews that were there from the 1800s, that were there prior to the Nakba and, you know, all of that that's happening. So those people are, to me, they're Palestinian. They're not part of the Zionist movement. They didn't want Zionism. So to me, it's just like they're part of that, and they're being oppressed because they're being bundled within the whole, oh, you're a Palestinian, so you must be fill in the blank. And it's just, I feel like that needs to be acknowledged around the world, that the Palestinians are oppressed. They are an oppressed people. There's so many writings about it. There's so many books written about it. And it's just, I don't think that the issue will be solved unless we have a broader acknowledgement of that issue. And then when that happens, then we need to figure out what the resolution is. And we need international reform. We need someone to come in and basically be a moderator between the two and figure out a solution. Because if you leave it up to the Palestinian or the Palestinian Authority, I mean, they may ask for something unreasonable, or they may do something that is the opposite of what the majority of Palestinians want. If you leave it up to the Israelis, they'll take all of Gaza and the West Bank. And, you know, we don't want genocide. We don't want ethnic cleansing. And I feel like there has to be some middle ground. And I don't know how we can get there with everything going on. There's emotion, and there's level heads are, hopefully they will prevail, but there are no level heads at the moment, because you have Biden that's stirring shit up, Netanyahu stirring shit up. And it's just, I feel like it's just going to get so much worse right now. I feel like it's going to get way worse before it can even get better.
Yeah.
Well, let's manifest something different.
Yeah, well, I do want to say we're at that time. We wanted to wrap this up because obviously we all have things we need to do. I do want to suggest for the viewers on this issue of the whole Biden-Trump thing, there is a movie out that our friend Nick Alvear put out. It's called The Greatest Show on Earth. And it does show, I mean, you have to have an open mind, but it shows what was going on behind the scenes with the Trump administration in 2017. And it's pretty mind-blowing, because Trump is very misunderstood and he's very controversial. But I just want to put that out there. But I do also want to give you any last word where people can find you. Lisa, you go first, and then Nada, because I know you have a great TikTok. So Lisa, please go ahead.
If I could sneak one comment in,
go right ahead.
A fabulous, unifying, productive conversation, and I think it's deserving of a part 2. So keep that in mind. Maybe we can.
Oh, I'd love to. I wish we lived closer, because I love Nada. And this is what happens when the Jews and the Palestinians leave there and they come and they're somewhere else. We always see common ground. We are, we are humans, and we have hearts and we love. So, but anyway, I have a show on the Grassroots Warrior Network called Where Truth Lies. And I've taken all of my videos and put them on a separate channel called Where Truth Lies. I have 130 followers on that. Please like and subscribe so I can get that up. You guys helped me on that. Thank you.
Let's get 1,000 this time.
Yes, let's get me to 1,000. Your last goal was to get me to 50, I think.
You're missing out if you haven't subscribed to Lisa's channel. It's great. Yeah.
And you can find me on Lisa Schermerhorn Coaching if you ever want to do any work, anything to help you with your nervous system and healing, and things like that. You can find me there, and or on Facebook or LinkedIn.
There we go. Nada?
I have a TikTok, and I'm really active on TikTok. I just hit, maybe I'm a little bit shy of 13,000 followers, and wow. I got my biggest boost probably in the last 3 days or so. I try to answer most comments, but there's just so much coming in right now that I'm just not catching up. I do a lot of lives. So live on TikTok is you literally go live and you invite people over, or people just join the conversation, and we talk about everything. And I have joined several lives where it's a balanced panel between pro-Palestinian and then pro-Israeli panelists, and we talk through the issues, and the discussions have been productive and non-productive. I think sometimes emotions kind of come through, but I do join those lives. And if you do follow me on TikTok, my handle or my username is Neda the Goat. So it's NADATHEGOAT. And like I said last time, I don't think I'm the greatest of all time. I'm the GOAT because I'm a Capricorn, and I'm stubborn. That's basic. I feel like those two go in hand. But if they follow me on TikTok, then you'll see when I'm live. Usually, around my picture, it's flashing red. That's how you know that I'm live. You can come in and listen and ask whatever questions. People can actually send me messages directly on TikTok. I don't always have the time to read all of them, but my last message here is, first of all, I want to say thank you for having a platform like this. I feel like this needs to happen more often. I would love to come on again and have part 2 of this conversation. And hopefully the next time we meet, we have better news. I think manifestation is important. That's part of prayer in Islam, right? I mean, it's praying and saying dua, which is basically just going on your knees and just asking whatever God you pray to for whatever it is, right? If you want healing, or if you want whatever it is that you're wanting from the God that you pray to, that's the best time to do it, and manifestation comes with it. But what I pray for is peace. And I know I'm not on a pageant somewhere, because they want world peace, but I really want world peace. I genuinely, I really want that. I'm very saddened that there's a lot of people that don't have the ability to close their eyes at night and not be afraid if they're going to wake up or not the next day. And it's hard to fathom that someone is going through that, no matter who they are, right? Like, right. It's just, it's not something that I want. I want people to feel that peace that I feel, at least in the safety of my own home. So I pray for the Palestinians. I'm obviously a Palestinian, so I'll always pray for my people, but I also do pray for everyone around the world that is experiencing any kind of oppression. If we have one group of people that's oppressed, we are all oppressed. So
great.
Wow.
Well said.
Beautifully stated.
The circumstances for what we're watching are horrific, but I think there really is an opportunity for unity and for something really special to happen. And I think that this talk has been a good step in that direction, and I'm looking forward to part 2. And thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you to our viewers. I know this will probably be on other channels, and we're TruthStream with Joe and Scott. And I do want to say that not only is Netta part of the reason we're even on TikTok, also Gianni Salvatore, because I wasn't planning on doing that, but it's a way to put snippets, and if someone's interested, then they can go see a fuller interview. We're also on Telegram, Truth Social, etc. And I just want to say thank you to our viewers and our subscribers. Steve has said, we got to say this once again, we really appreciate the support, and we do have a Patreon, we do have a Stripe. This has turned into a full-time thing for 2 guys that weren't even planning on doing this, but the reason we did it is to help humanity understand more about our world, to help save the children, to help spread awareness, and to have conversations with 2 beautiful feminine divine feminines like yourselves. And it means a lot to have you guys both on our show. It really does. So thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you for having us.
Mutual Admiration Society here.
All right, everybody, stay around, ladies. And I will put a link to the movie that's called The Greatest Show on Earth by Nick Alvear on Good Line TV. I'll put that below, along with all your links, and we'll see you guys later. All right, take care, everyone.